Hello, hello! Happy Valentine's Day sa lahat! Sa lahat ng nandyan, nakapanood dito ngayon. I will greet you and happy Valentine's Day kung saan ka man ngayon naroroon. Nag-enjoy, kumakain sa labas, at nakita nyo ito yung live or either replay na lang. So maraming salamat sa pagpanood nyo. Grabe! Itong presentation na itong pinapanood ko ngayon, ito umaatin siya dito sa GoPro ni Eric Worre. At the same time, si Liz Brown, kung kilala nyo si Liz Brown, meron siyang bisita ngayon na magsalita, which is si Sean O'Neill, which is grabe. Burn your boat. Sunugin mo daw yung barko mong sinasakyan. At huwag ka nang bumalik. Yan ang explanation niya ngayon. Panoorin natin guys kung paano niya sinasabi at naging experience niya sa buhay niya at paano siya naging successful. Alright? Panoorin natin.
To control the direction of where your life was going. So Sean Arnold, after that experience, after sending out hundreds of resumes and not one response, trained, experienced, intelligent, accomplished attorney, she finally looked at herself and said, I'm going to do something else. And so she used her story. She never was involved in public speaking before. And so I want to invite her to start coming to the stage. And I want to move now, Sean, come up here. So she used her story to talk to people, to help them to build their businesses. She was involved in business acquisition, selling businesses, acquiring businesses, strategic thinking, corporate and business strategist for major corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations. So she and I spent some time together. And I said, you know what? You can do more than just look for another law firm to associate with. I said, you have a story. And we spent time working on that story. And I want you to listen to her story. Come here in the center, please. Give Sean a round of applause. Thank you. And I want you to listen and tell me what you noticed based upon the things we covered yesterday and the things that we've been working on.
Good morning. Folks, I have absolutely no idea how the phone found its way into my hand that day, but it did. I had no specific intent to call anyone. I called the police. The desk sergeant answered the phone. I said, sir, I need to know what the laws are that constitute child abuse. He said, well, hitting a child so as to leave a mark, not clothing that child, not feeding that child. And there's such a thing as emotional abuse as well. I said, then sir, I think I need to report what might be child abuse. He said, oh, are you a teacher? Are you a neighbor? I said, no, sir. I'm the child. He said, oh, no. No. You have to be under 18. I said, I'm 14. He said, you're 14? I was a bit of a cerebral child. I said, yes, sir. I'm 14. Well, he asked me a series of questions, and I gave him the answers and described my injuries, which included a black eye, a busted lip, and a swollen purple wrist that was later determined to have a hairline fracture. And as I finished describing these things, I heard the bell ring in the distance, summoning me back to school after the lunch break. The policeman asked me for my phone number. I said, I can't give that to you. I just heard the bell ring. I have to go back to school. I can't be late. I'm going to get into trouble. He said, give me your phone number and don't you move. I complied with his order, and I hung up the phone. And I sat there in the silence of our living room, just listening to myself breathe in and out. And as I think about that conversation, the one thing that resonates with me is he was in my ear when I needed him to be in my ear. See, when I heard that bell ring, my first inclination was to go back to school. My first inclination was to go back to that life and crawl back in that box and live in misery. But he was in my ear. So let me ask you, who's in your ear? Who are you listening to? See, we are social creatures. You're listening to somebody. Every world-class performer has a coach. So, are you leaning in this weekend? Are you shucking those oysters looking for those pearls of wisdom? Or are you waiting for the break so that you can go to the bar and hang out? Which is fine. I mean, hey, it's Vegas. Play some slot machines. But do you want this for your life? Do you? Then take heed to who you're listening to. The police officer called me back in fewer than 2 minutes. He said, I want you to go to the Bureau of Child Welfare. They're waiting for you. I said, sir, I can't do that. I live on Roosevelt Island. I can't get off the island. I don't have any money. He said, I want you to go to school, go to the administrative office, borrow the money, get on that train, and go to the Bureau of Child Welfare. They are waiting for you. I told him that I would, and again, I hung up the phone. And as I sat there in the silence once again, two things occurred to me. One was that if my mother had to put makeup on me so I could go to school, she knew it was wrong. And the second was that either my father or I was not going to physically survive my childhood. One of us wasn't going to make it, and it was a 50-50 shot on who it was going to be, and everybody's life was going to be laid to waste. See, I didn't have a choice. I stood up, I went down to my bedroom, and I found a little beach bag. It was about 10 or 12 inches square and about 3 or 4 inches deep. And I put some underwear and a couple of pairs of shirts and a couple of pairs of pants and some shirts in the bag. And I walked over to the stairway. And I was reminded of a recent social study lesson when Hernán Cortés landed on the shores of Mexico in 1519. One of the very first orders he gave to his men was to burn their ships in the harbor. He gave that order because he understood on a cellular level that if they had no place to retreat to, they were going to fight, they were going to win, or they were going to die. That's it. Those were their choices. We all get into these positions in our life where there's a brave new world waiting for us. We get to the edge of the forest and we get scared and we go back to the ship. But we know that isn't the place for us. We know that represents the past. So we go back to the forest and we stop right at that invisible force field of fear. And we go back to the ship, and back to the forest, and back to the ship, and back to the forest. And you want to break free. You want to take on that brave new world. But there's only one way to do it. You must be willing to return to your ship just one more time. You have to be willing to light that flame of commitment to yourself, to your family, to your life, to your dream, and set that baby on fire. Let it burn. Let me hear you say it with me. I'm burning my ship in the harbor. And I'm not going back. That's right. So as I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my little bag in my hand, I took one more deep breath. Then I walked up the stairs and out of my parents' home for the last time. I went to school and I borrowed the money and I got on that little red cable car. You've probably seen it. It runs along the 59th Street Bridge and it set me down in Manhattan, right next to Bloomingdale's. I got on the train for the first time in my life by myself, and I made my way to the Bureau of Child Welfare. Sometimes that's just it. You have to make your way. When the doctor tells you something you don't want to hear, you have to make your way. When your spouse is acting a natural fool, again, you got to make your way. When your children are acting like they had no upbringing, sometimes you just got to kiss them up to God. Release them and make your way. When the economy turns upside down and spits you out like a piece of chewed up gum and you feel like you've landed on the bottom of somebody's shoe, use that shoe to help you make your way in this world. See, that's what I did. I made my way to the Bureau of Child Welfare. A social worker met me there, and she put me in the hospital in Bellevue, the children's ward, not the psych ward, just so you know. And she called my parents, and she said, "We have your daughter here, and she's made charges against you." And my parents said, "Keep her. We don't want her." So this whole situation took on a life of its own, and it rolled like a snowball down a hill, and 90 days later, I found myself sitting in a courtroom, basically suing my parents for divorce. And as I sat in the witness box, I looked at my sister, who was in the gallery behind my parents. They were seated at the defense table. My Harvard Law School educated father, he cross-examined me, represented himself. Yeah, he had a fool for a client. As I looked at my sister, she was wearing a brand new pair of eyeglasses. My sister never wore eyeglasses. I walked into the courthouse that day and I walked up to my mother and I said, "Hi, where's Kim? Is she coming?" She was sitting right next to my mother. My sister and I shared a bedroom our entire lives. And in 3 months, I didn't recognize my own sister. Those eyeglasses, more than anything else that happened that day, those eyeglasses told me my ship had already burned in the harbor. And from that moment, I had to take care of me. So with the acrid smell of smoke in my nostrils, I turned and I looked at the judge. And I just started talking. I said, "Please, sir, I don't want to go to Pleasantville." That's what they were deciding for me. Pleasantville. Sounds nice. But I knew from the home it was a warehouse for children in upstate New York. And I felt like if I went there, all of my hopes and all of my dreams for my future would just dissipate like smoke. I was frightened, and in that frightened state, this voice rose up in me I didn't know I had. And this ability to advocate and negotiate that I had no idea was in me rose up in me, and I spoke to the man. I said to him, I want to stay in the city. I want to go to a competitive school because I want to go to college one day. And the judge turned and looked at me, and he leaned back in his chair. And I was reminded of De Niro. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Because I'm the judge. But I think he was amused by me. He said, okay, what kind of grades does she get? Turning to my lawyers. And my lawyers, my advocates, who were helping the judge decide my future, yeah, they had absolutely no idea what kind of grades I got. They barely knew my name. And that is why today I am a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate for abused and neglected children, because children's voices get lost in the system. Thank you. So my lawyers went back. My lawyers went to the back and they checked my grades. He looked up, he sounded surprised. He said, well, she gets A's and B's, sir. A couple C's. Now, with a Harvard-educated father, you might imagine those C's were unacceptable in our household. They were the source of a lot of contention. And I thought that on the basis of those two C's, the judge was going to turn me down flat and send me off packing to Pleasantville. But when he turned to look at me, there was respect in his eyes. He said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you what you want. You can stay in the city, but you're going to have a disposition hearing in 18 months, and I want to see those grades. You hear me? You keep your grades up. I said, yes, sir, I will. I promise. I promise I'll keep my grades up. Well, that day, the judge found my parents guilty of neglect. Odd. And he put me into a group home on the corner of 82nd and West End Avenue. And I spent the rest of my childhood in foster care. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story this morning is because that was a moment in my life when I had a very difficult decision to make. Somebody in this room is sitting on a difficult decision. Do you go back to work? Do you follow the course that your heart is calling to you? Do you listen to the no, the stop, the don't that all your people are telling you? Or do you stay the course? It's a difficult decision. The president of Procter & Gamble once told us that a difficult decision is a difficult decision not because you don't know what to do. He said a difficult decision is a difficult decision because you do know what to do. But so often we lack the courage of conviction. A decision does not take a long time to make. It's instantaneous. And the second you make that decision, you will experience a shift in your person. You will magically become the person that you need to be in order to do what you know you must do. For you, for your life, for your family, for your dream. Make that decision. Experience the shift and then take massive action toward your goal. And in that way, you will truly enjoy the fruits of this brave new world. Thank you very much.
So that's it, guys. Grabe, no? So, are you ready? Gusto mo ba? sunugin na yung bridge mo, sunugin yung barko mo sinasakyan. So you're willing to board your ship into that harbor. So make your way. Huwag kang makinig sa mga taong mga negatibo. Gusto mo ba bumalik doon sa mga negative? Or gusto mo mag-forward para sa mga positive? Positive na mga tao. So that's the journey. So yun yung journey niya. Kaya umabot siya sa ganyang posisyon. So tayo naman, bilang nalaman na natin yung mga ganyang style, so we need to step up. Ano yun dapat natin gawin? Alam na natin kung ano yung dapat natin gawin. Kung meron kang pangarap, meron kang mga goals sa buhay, yes, proceed kung ano yung dapat mong gawin. So find out, attack, attack, attack. Level up, level up, level up. So that's it guys. Oh, have a nice day and grace be with you all. Bye-bye.